The principal's voice cut through the morning staff meeting like a whip. "Take that thing off right now, Ellis, or don't bother showing up tomorrow," he snapped, staring at the small rainbow pin gleaming on Ryan Ellis's navy blazer. Ryan stood frozen in the crowded lounge of Lincoln High School in suburban Ohio, the weight of 30 pairs of eyes pressing down on him as colleagues shifted uncomfortably and a few parents who had dropped by for orientation whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. He had only been hired 3 days ago as the new history teacher, fresh from his master's program in Columbus. And this was supposed to be his fresh start in a town that promised stability after years of bouncing between cities. Instead, the pin he wore not as a statement, but as a quiet reminder of who he was had already branded him the outsider. Ryan swallowed hard, his fingers brushing the fabric where the pin had sat moments earlier. The principal, Mr. Harlan, a burly man in his 50s with a reputation for running the school like a military camp, had yanked it off himself during the welcome remarks. "We keep politics out of the classroom here," Harlan continued, dropping the pin into the trash can with a metallic clink that echoed in Ryan's ears. "Parents expect focus on education, not agendas." A few teachers nodded in agreement, while others looked away, their silence louder than any words. Ryan felt the heat rise in his cheeks, a familiar burn from college days when coming out had cost him friendships and family dinners. At 28, he thought he was past letting small-town prejudice rattle him. But standing there alone in a room full of strangers, the old doubts flooded back. Was this the price of being open? Of refusing to hide anymore after his last relationship ended, because he had grown tired of pretending? The meeting dragged on, but Ryan barely heard the rest of the announcements about curriculum standards and parent nights. His mind raced through the decisions that had led him here, leaving his supportive but distant boyfriend Mark back in the city, because long distance felt like another closet, accepting this job in a conservative district because the pay and benefits promised security for the life he wanted to build. By the time the bell rang for first period, the whispers had spread like wildfire through the halls. Students glanced at him sideways as he walked to his classroom, one sophomore muttering "freak" under his breath just loud enough to sting. Ryan forced a smile anyway, unpacking his books and writing the day's lesson on the board about the civil rights movement. If they wanted to test him, he would teach them strength through history, even if his own felt shaky right now. Lunch brought no relief. In the cafeteria, he sat alone at the end of the teacher's table until Mrs. Lang, the veteran English instructor, slid into the seat across from him with a tray of lukewarm pasta. "Don't let Harlan get to you," she said quietly, her voice carrying the weariness of someone who had seen too many new hires break. "He's old school, but the kids need teachers like you who actually care." Ryan nodded gratefully, the first kind word all day easing the knot in his chest a fraction. They talked about lesson plans and the upcoming homecoming game, but underneath, Ryan wondered how long he could keep the peace. His phone buzzed in his pocket during the conversation. A text from Mark. "How's day one, babe? Miss you already." Ryan typed back quickly. "Rough start, but surviving. Love you." The words felt true, yet the distance between them suddenly seemed wider than the miles separating their apartments. As the afternoon classes blurred into one another, Ryan poured himself into the material, engaging even the skeptical students with stories of ordinary people who changed the world through quiet courage. A few faces softened, but the damage from the morning lingered. By dismissal, the principal's secretary had left a note in his mailbox. "Mandatory meeting tomorrow about professional standards." Ryan crumpled it in his fist as he headed to the parking lot, the autumn wind whipping through the Ohio fields surrounding the school. He drove home to his small rented house on the edge of town, the radio playing soft indie rock that did nothing to drown out the replay of Harlan's words. Inside, he poured a glass of water and stared at the empty counter where he had planned to place photos of him and Mark. The rainbow pin, rescued from the trash before leaving, sat beside his keys like a talisman. That evening, his mother called from Florida, her voice bright but probing as always. "How's the new job, honey?" "Making friends." Ryan hesitated, the familiar urge to edit his life for her approval rising up. She knew he was gay, had known for years, but acceptance came with conditions, Just don't shove it in people's faces. He gave her the polished version, omitting the pin incident, and hung up feeling more isolated than ever. Later, Mark's voice on the phone brought some comfort, their conversation drifting to weekend plans and shared memories of city nights. But when Ryan mentioned the humiliation, Mark's sigh carried frustration. Maybe tone it down for a while. It's just a pin, Ree. You don't have to fight every battle. The words stung more than Harlan's, planting seeds of doubt about whether love meant compromise or courage. Ryan lay awake long after the call ended, the house creaking in the night wind, wondering if coming to Lincoln High had been the biggest mistake of his life or the start of something that would finally force him to stand tall. The next morning arrived too soon, the school buzzing with the aftermath of his arrival. Students in his first class eyed him warily, one girl raising her hand to ask if he was one of those activists they had heard about. Ryan answered calmly, redirecting to the lesson on equality in the Constitution, but the tension hung thick. During break, a group of teachers cornered him in the copy room, their questions laced with judgment. You know this town's not like the big cities, right? Ryan held his ground, explaining that history was about learning from the past to build a better future, but the encounter left him drained. By the time he reached his planning period, the weight of it all pressed down, memories of his own teenage years in a similar small town flooding back, the secret crushes, the fear of being outed, the night spent journaling instead of dating. He had come so far since then, earning his degree, building a career, finding Mark. Yet here he was again, the new guy reduced to a symbol. As the day wore on, Ryan noticed a few students lingering after class, curious about the material despite the rumors. One boy, quiet and thoughtful, asked for extra reading on civil rights leaders who had faced personal attacks. Ryan recommended a book, seeing a spark of understanding in the kid's eyes that reminded him why he taught. It was small victories like these that kept him going through the stairs and the sidelong comments in the halls. But the real test came when Harlan summoned him to the office after last period. "We've had complaints," the principal said flatly, sliding a folder across the desk filled with parent notes. "Tone it down, Ellis, or this won't work out." Ryan left the meeting with his jaw set, the pin now pinned inside his blazer pocket like a secret shield. Driving home that evening, the sunset painting the fields gold, he made a silent promise to himself. He would not hide, not again. Little did he know that promise would soon be tested in ways that would change not just his life, but the entire school's future. The weekend offered Ryan a brief respite from the school's watchful eyes, but even at home, the pressure followed. He spent Saturday grading papers at the kitchen table, Mark's text providing the only bright spots in an otherwise quiet day. They planned a video call for Sunday, and Ryan found himself replaying their conversation from the night before, weighing Mark's suggestion to remove the pin against his own need to be authentic. By Sunday afternoon, the call connected, Mark's face filling the screen from his downtown apartment, the city skyline visible behind him. "You look tired, babe," Mark said, concern etching his features. Ryan opened up about the meeting with Harlan, the parent complaints, the way students now treated him like a curiosity. Mark listened, then offered practical advice. "It's not worth losing the job over a symbol. We've got bills, future plans." Ryan nodded, but inside, the words felt like another layer of erasure. Their goodbyes were warm, filled with "I love US," yet Ryan hung up feeling more alone in the quiet Ohio house than he had in years. Monday brought fresh challenges. The school was preparing for the annual parent-teacher night, and Ryan's classroom buzzed with last-minute setups. Mrs. Lang stopped by again, this time with coffee and a knowing smile. "Hang in there," she whispered. "Not everyone's like Harlan. Some of us remember what it was like before things started changing." Her words gave Ryan hope, and he threw himself into preparing interactive displays on historical figures who fought for equality. During the event that evening, the turnout was solid, parents milling through the halls with clipboards. Ryan greeted each one with professionalism, answering questions about curriculum and homework. But when a group of 3 fathers lingered at his table, their conversation turned pointed. "Heard about that pin thing," one said, arms crossed. "We don't need that influencing our kids." Ryan kept his voice steady, explaining that his personal life stayed outside the classroom, but the encounter left him rattled. As the night wore on, Ryan noticed Jake Thompson, the school counselor, watching from across the gym. Jake was in his early 30s, tall with kind eyes and a quiet demeanor that had caught Ryan's attention during orientation. They had exchanged pleasantries before, but tonight Jake approached during a lull. "Rough crowd?" he asked, handing Ryan a bottle of water. Their conversation flowed easily into shared frustrations about administrative red tape and the joys of helping students navigate tough years. For the first time since arriving, Ryan felt seen without judgment. Jake's subtle smile lingered in his mind as he drove home later, a small spark of connection amid the isolation. Tuesday escalated the tension when a local newspaper ran a short piece on controversial new hires at Lincoln High, quoting anonymous parents about the rainbow pin incident. The article didn't name Ryan directly, but everyone knew. Students passed copies in the halls, and Ryan's classes felt heavier, the air charged with curiosity and skepticism. During lunch, a colleague from the math department pulled him aside. "Look, I support you, but maybe keep it low-key. My own kids go here." The betrayal stung, especially from someone who had seemed friendly before. Ryan spent the afternoon replaying the moment, questioning who he could trust in this tight-knit community. That evening, another call from his mother brought more layers. She had seen the article online and worried aloud about his safety and reputation. "Just be careful, Ryan. Not everyone understands." Her concern was genuine, but it echoed the same conditional love he had grown up with. Hanging up, Ryan stepped outside into the cool night air, the stars bright over the fields. He thought about Mark's words again, about compromise, and wondered if love and identity could coexist without sacrifice. The next day at school, the whispers had died down slightly, replaced by a tentative normalcy. Ryan taught with renewed energy, noticing how a few students now engaged more deeply with the material, as if the controversy had made history feel relevant. Jake stopped by his room after school, offering to collaborate on a student wellness program. Their conversation stretched longer than planned, touching on personal lives without crossing lines, and Ryan left feeling lighter, the first real friendship forming in this new chapter. As the week closed, the school announced plans for a major fundraiser to repair aging infrastructure, the old building showing signs of wear after recent storms. Ryan volunteered to help, seeing it as a way to prove his value beyond the pin. Little did he realize that the coming weather forecast, warnings of severe thunderstorms, would turn that volunteer spirit into something far more critical. The weekend passed in a blur of lesson planning and quiet reflection, Ryan pinning the rainbow badge back on his blazer each morning as a private act of defiance. Mark's texts remained supportive but cautious. While Jake's occasional smiles in the hallway hinted at possibilities Ryan wasn't ready to name yet. The internal storm was building, mirroring the one gathering on the horizon. The thunderstorms arrived without mercy on Thursday afternoon, turning the sky dark as students scrambled between classes. Ryan was in the middle of a lecture on the Great Depression when the first alerts buzzed on everyone's phones. Tornado watch for the county. Harlan's voice crackled over the intercom, ordering everyone to remain calm and prepare for possible shelter in place. Ryan kept his class focused, using the moment to draw parallels between historical resilience and their current situation, but inside, his mind raced with memories of past volunteer work he had done during college, helping with disaster relief in neighboring states. Those experiences had taught him skills few knew about, but now seemed distant. The power flickered as winds picked up, rain lashing the windows like gunfire. Parents began arriving early for the fundraiser meeting scheduled that evening, the parking lot filling despite the weather. Ryan helped direct traffic in the halls, his blazer soaked from a quick dash outside. Jake appeared at his side again, coordinating with the counseling team to keep students calm. "You're good in a crisis," Jake noted quietly, their eyes meeting in a way that carried more than professional respect. The comment warmed Ryan, a reminder that not everyone saw him through the lens of the pen. As the event began in the auditorium, the storm intensified, hail pounding the roof. Harlan took the stage to speak about the needed repairs, But midway through his speech, a loud crack echoed from the roof, followed by shouts from the back. Water began pouring in from a damaged section, panic rippling through the crowd of parents and staff. Ryan moved instinctively, directing people toward the reinforced gym as alarms blared. "Stay low and follow me," he called, his voice steady from years of unspoken training. A group of teachers hesitated, but Ryan's calm presence pulled them along. Outside, the wind howled, debris flying as the tornado warning upgraded to imminent. Ryan spotted a group of students trapped near the old wing, their cries cutting through the chaos. Without thinking, he ran toward them, Jake close behind shouting for backup. Together, they guided the kids to safety, Ryan using his body to shield one from falling branches that crashed through a window. The betrayal came later, in the shelter of the gym where everyone huddled. A parent who had complained about the pin earlier pulled Harlan aside, pointing at Ryan. "That guy's the one causing division, and now he's playing hero." Whispers spread, some crediting Ryan's actions while others questioned his motives. Ryan sat against the wall, exhausted, the rainbow pin still visible on his wet blazer. Mark texted frantically from the city, worried after seeing weather reports, but Ryan could only reply briefly, "Safe for now. Love you." Jake sat nearby, offering water and a quiet, "You were amazing out there." Their conversation in the dim emergency lights touched on deeper topics. Jake admitting his own struggles with identity in a small town, the words hanging between them like an unspoken connection. As the storm passed and emergency crews arrived, the extent of the damage became clear. The roof partially collapsed, wiring exposed, the building unsafe for immediate return. Harlan announced an early dismissal for the next day, but the real fallout waited in the staff meeting the following morning. Ryan arrived early, only to find a petition circulating among some parents demanding his reassignment. The misunderstanding grew when a colleague misquoted his actions as reckless, twisting the heroism into something divisive. Ryan defended himself calmly, but the internal conflict raged. Was proving his worth through crisis worth the cost to his peace? That afternoon, alone in his classroom amid scattered papers, Ryan called Mark again. The conversation tense with Mark urging caution and Ryan feeling the pull of his own convictions. The week ended with the school board scheduling an emergency session to address the structural issues and, unspoken, the teacher controversy. Ryan spent the weekend reflecting on sacrifices, his family history of quiet endurance clashing with the need for change. Jake reached out via text for coffee to debrief, their meeting at a local diner revealing layers of shared experiences. As friendship deepened into something more tentative, Ryan realized the storm had not just damaged the building, but cracked open possibilities he had long guarded. The true test, however, was yet to come as repairs loomed and the community divided further. The school board meeting packed the auditorium, tension thick as parents, teachers, and students filled every seat. Ryan sat in the front row, his rainbow pin deliberately visible, the small symbol now a focal point for the heated debate over school values. Speakers took turns, some praising the need for inclusivity, while others echoed Harlan's earlier stance on keeping agendas out. Ryan's heart pounded as his name came up repeatedly, the humiliation from his first day replayed in public testimony. Yet when it was his turn to speak, he stood with quiet dignity, sharing not just about the pin, but about the students who had confided in him since the storm. Kids struggling with their own identities, finding strength in history lessons that mirrored their lives. The room quieted, a few nods of understanding breaking through the opposition. After the meeting, the board voted to approve emergency funds for repairs, but tabled any decision on Ryan's status, leaving him in limbo. Driving home, Ryan felt the weight of the day's events, the internal crisis peaking as he questioned every choice that had led him here. Mark's call that night brought comfort mixed with pressure. His boyfriend suggested applying for jobs back in the city, away from the prejudice. "We can build something real there," Mark said, but Ryan heard the underlying fear. Hanging up, Ryan stared at old photos on his phone, Moments of joy with Mark, contrasting the growth he felt happening here despite the pain. The next days blurred into repair coordination. Ryan volunteering extra hours to help organize supply drives, his past volunteer experience proving invaluable as he directed teams with efficiency that surprised everyone. Jake became a constant presence, their lunches turning into deep discussions about family expectations and the courage it took to live openly. One evening after a long day, they walked the school grounds together, the conversation shifting to personal dreams. Jake's hand brushed Ryan's briefly, a spark neither acknowledged but both felt. The misunderstanding arose when a colleague spotted them and spread rumors of favoritism, adding another layer of betrayal to Ryan's plate. Ryan confronted the gossip head-on in the lounge, his voice firm yet measured, turning the moment into a lesson on assumption versus truth. The act earned respect from unexpected allies, including Mrs. Lang, who publicly backed him during a staff vote on new protocols. Family pressure mounted when Ryan's sister visited from out of state, her arrival coinciding with another round of parent complaints. Over dinner, she echoed their mother's concerns but also challenged him to fight. "You've always been the strong one," she said, reminding him of childhood moments where he protected her from bullies. The talk stirred something in Ryan, reinforcing his resolve. As the school prepared to reopen partially, the community fundraiser gained momentum, Ryan's organizational skills shining through. Students who had once whispered now approach him for advice, one even coming out quietly in his office after class. Those moments of impact made the sacrifices feel worthwhile, the emotional growth unfolding in quiet victories. Yet the crisis deepened when inspectors revealed more extensive damage than expected, threatening closure if funds fell short. Ryan threw himself into rallying support, coordinating with local businesses, and even reaching out to alumni. Jake stood by him through it all, their bond strengthening into a partnership built on mutual understanding. Mark sensed the shift during their calls, the distance growing not just physical but emotional. Ryan faced the choice: retreat to safety or embrace the life unfolding here. The internal conflict raged, but each decision to stay built his confidence, preparing him for the pivotal moment that would define everything. The final inspection day arrived with clear skies, but the atmosphere at Lincoln High remained stormy. Contractors swarmed the building, assessing the storm's full toll when a secondary issue emerged: a gas leak in the old boiler room, undetected until now. Alarms blared during afternoon classes, students and staff evacuating in organized chaos. Ryan, already on site helping with supplies, sprang into action, his volunteer EMT training from years ago kicking in instinctively. "Evacuate to the field, stay calm," he directed, guiding groups away from the building while alerting authorities. Harlan, frozen in shock, watched as Ryan coordinated with arriving firefighters, his knowledge of building layouts and emergency protocols saving precious minutes. Parents rushed to the scene, panic spreading as news of the leak hit social media. Ryan spotted a group of special needs students trapped near the leak area, their aides overwhelmed. Without hesitation, he re-entered the building with a rescue team, his voice steady as he led them to safety through side exits. Debris fell around them, the air thick with tension, but Ryan's calm presence kept everyone focused. Jake assisted from outside, directing medical aid, their eyes locking in a moment of shared fear and pride. As the last student emerged, the building shuddered with a controlled explosion in the boiler room. The leak ignited, but contained thanks to Ryan's quick thinking in shutting off valves he remembered from his past experiences. The town watched in awe as news crews arrived, the story of a new teacher's heroism spreading rapidly. Parents who had once complained now approached Ryan with thanks, the pin on his blazer suddenly a symbol of courage rather than controversy. Harlan pulled him aside later, the principal's gruff apology marking a turning point. "I was wrong about you, Ellis." Ryan accepted it quietly, the weight of weeks of judgment lifting slightly. Mark called immediately upon hearing the news, his pride mixed with concern for the risks Ryan had taken. Their conversation revealed cracks in their relationship. Mark admitting the distance had changed things while Ryan realized his growth here was irreversible. In the aftermath, the school community rallied, donations pouring in to cover repairs and upgrades. Ryan's actions had not only saved lives, but united the town in ways the fundraiser never could. Jake stayed close during the debriefs, their connection deepening into something undeniable as they shared a quiet moment in the empty gym, hands brushing with intent. The emotional journey culminated in Ryan's realization that true belonging came from within, the prejudice he faced forging a stronger sense of self. Students sought him out, inspired by the real-life example of resilience he embodied. As the sun set on the repaired grounds, Ryan felt the shift, from outsider to integral part of the school's story. Weeks after the incident, Lincoln High reopened stronger than before, the new facilities a testament to community spirit sparked by crisis. Ryan stood at the front of his classroom on the first full day back, the rainbow pin proudly displayed once more, now met with smiles instead of stares. Students shared their own stories of growth, the lessons on history intertwined with real-world applications of courage and acceptance. Mrs. Lang became a close mentor, while even Harlan acknowledged Ryan's contributions publicly at the assembly. The relationships Ryan had built, with colleagues, students, and especially Jake, flourished, their quiet dinners evolving into shared weekends exploring the Ohio countryside. Mark visited one weekend, the reunion bittersweet as they walked the fields near Ryan's house. Conversations revealed what Ryan had feared. The distance and differing views on openness had widened the gap. They parted with mutual respect, Mark returning to the city while Ryan stayed, the decision feeling right for the first time. Family calls grew warmer, his mother and sister expressing pride in the man he had become through adversity. The internal conflicts that once defined his days now resolved into a steady confidence. The journey from humiliation to heroism, teaching him that authenticity demanded both risk and reward. Jake and Ryan's relationship blossomed naturally, grounded in shared values and the quiet understanding forged in crisis. Their first public appearance together at the homecoming game drew supportive cheers, the town embracing the change Ryan had helped usher in. As winter approached, the school thrived, Ryan's role expanding to include diversity workshops that students requested. The sacrifices, the misunderstandings, the family tensions, the personal doubts had all led to this point of fulfillment, where love, friendship, and purpose intertwined. Ryan stood on the school steps one crisp evening, looking out over the fields where the storm had once raged. The pin on his blazer caught the light, a reminder of how far he had come. In saving the school, he had saved himself, proving that one person's truth could ripple outward, challenging prejudices and building bridges. The emotional growth was complete. The man who arrived broken by judgment now whole through connection and courage. True or false? One heroic act can truly erase years of prejudice and lead to lasting acceptance for someone who lives openly as a gay man.